My partner invited his kids on our vacation without asking me, so I canceled the whole trip. I'd been saving for that beach trip for 18 months. My partner Garrett and I had 2 kids together, Finn, who was 7, and Ruby, who was 4, and I'd spent months building a spreadsheet of tide pools and mini golf courses and boardwalk restaurants that didn't cost a fortune. We'd booked a condo with a balcony overlooking the water. I'd mapped out every day, mornings building sand castles, afternoons letting the kids nap while Garrett and I read on the porch, evenings walking the pier without anyone needing us to referee or manage or explain, just the 4 of us. Garrett had 2 older children from his first marriage, 14-year-old Bryce and 12-year-old Addison. They lived with their mom, Courtney, most of the time, visiting us every other weekend and part of the summer. We'd taken them to an amusement park back in March, just the 6 of us, and it had been fine. I'd thought that counted as their special trip. When I started planning the beach getaway, Garrett and I agreed it would be just our household this time. Finn and Ruby needed it. We needed it. Then Courtney called 6 days before we were supposed to leave. Garrett answered on speaker because he was washing dishes. Courtney's voice came through strained and apologetic. Her mom, who usually watched Bryce and Addison during her work trips, had fallen and broken her hip. Courtney had a conference she couldn't skip. She'd tried 3 babysitters. No one could take them for 5 full days. Finn was in the living room practicing his backstroke on the carpet. He yelled, "We're going to the beach!" loud enough that I heard Addison's voice on the other end of the call go quiet, then sharp. "You're going where?" Garrett shot me a look. I mouthed, "Don't," at him, but he was already explaining. Yes, we had a trip planned. Yes, it was just going to be the 4 of us this time. No, we hadn't meant to keep it a secret. Courtney's tone shifted. She asked if maybe the kids could come along, just this once. She'd pay for their flights and all their food. She'd Venmo me before we even left. It would solve her childcare crisis and keep Bryce and Addison from feeling excluded. I watched Garrett's face. He wasn't saying no. After the call ended, he turned to me and said we should think about it. I reminded him we'd already thought about it. We'd planned this trip for us. 2 adults, 2 little kids, no juggling schedules or managing teenagers who barely acknowledged me when I asked them to clear a plate. He said it was one trip. He said Courtney was in a bind. He said it wasn't the kids' fault their grandma got hurt. I said I didn't want to spend my vacation being the unpaid babysitter for 4 children, 2 of whom treated me like furniture. Garrett looked at me like I'd just said something cruel. We didn't finish the conversation. He said he needed to think. I went upstairs and stared at my suitcase, already half packed with sunscreen and goggles and the paperback I'd been saving since Christmas. The next morning, I woke up to an email notification on my phone. The subject line said booking confirmation. I opened it. 2 round-trip tickets to the same airport, same dates. Bryce's name and Addison's name in the passenger fields. Purchased at 6:43 that morning while I was still asleep. I sat on the edge of the bed holding my phone. Downstairs, I heard Garrett making coffee. Ruby ran past the bedroom door in her pajamas, singing about finding crabs. Finn called up from the kitchen. "Mom, how many more days?" I looked at the email again. The tickets were non-refundable. Garrett had already decided. I walked downstairs. Garrett was pouring coffee into his travel mug, getting ready for work. Ruby sat at the table eating cereal. Finn was putting on his shoes by the door. I held up my phone. "You bought the tickets." He glanced at me, then back at the mug. Courtney needed an answer. I didn't say yes. You didn't say no either. I stepped closer and lowered my voice so the kids wouldn't hear. We talked about this. We agreed it was just the 4 of us. He screwed the lid onto the mug. That was before her mom got hurt. Things changed. Things changed for her, not for us. He set the mug down harder than he needed to. They're my kids too. I know that. We took them to the amusement park. We do things with them all the time, and now we're doing this. I stared at him. You didn't even ask me. You just bought the tickets while I was asleep, because I knew you'd say no. That's not how decisions work. Garrett grabbed his keys off the counter. Courtney's paying for their flights and food. You don't have to do anything except make a little extra room. A little extra room? Garrett, I planned every single day of this trip. I booked activities for 2 kids, not 4. I reserved a condo with 1 bedroom and a pull-out couch. Where are Bryce and Addison supposed to sleep? We'll figure it out. I don't want to figure it out. I wanted one trip where I didn't have to manage everyone else's needs. His jaw tightened. You mean you wanted a trip where you didn't have to deal with my other kids? The words hit me like a slap. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. He picked up his mug. That's what this is really about. You don't want them there because they're not yours. That's not fair, isn't it? He headed for the door. Courtney's in a bind. I'm helping. If you can't handle that, I don't know what to tell you. He left. The door shut. Finn looked up from tying his shoes. Are Bryce and Addison coming to the beach? I forced my voice steady. We're still figuring it out. Ruby climbed down from her chair and came over. She put her hand on my leg. Are you mad at Daddy? I crouched down and smoothed her hair. No, baby, we're just talking about the trip. Is the trip still happening? I looked at her face, so small and hopeful. Yes, the trip's still happening. She smiled and ran back to the table. Finn grabbed his backpack and headed out to wait for the bus. I stood in the kitchen alone, staring at the tickets on my phone. That night, after the kids were in bed, Garrett came into the living room where I was folding laundry. He sat on the arm of the couch. I'm not trying to fight with you, he said. I kept folding. You already did. I just think you're making this bigger than it needs to be. It's 5 days. Courtney's covering their expenses. Bryce and Addison aren't going to ruin the trip. I set down the shirt I was holding. They don't listen to me, Garrett. Last time they stayed with us, Addison rolled her eyes every time I asked her to do something. Bryce spent the entire weekend on his phone and acted like I didn't exist. They're teenagers. That's what teenagers do. To everyone or just to me? He didn't answer. I picked up another shirt. I'm not saying they're bad kids. I'm saying I don't want to spend my vacation being ignored and undermined while I'm trying to keep track of 4 people instead of 2. So what are you saying? That I should uninvite them? Tell Courtney sorry, my partner doesn't want you? I'm saying you should have asked me before you bought the tickets. He stood up. I'm trying to do the right thing here. Courtney's mom is in the hospital. Bryce and Addison already feel like outsiders half the time. If I tell them they can't come now, after they know we're going, it's going to destroy them. They had their trip. We went to the amusement park. That was 3 months ago. So what? We're supposed to include them in everything forever so no one feels left out? His face went hard. If that's what it takes, yeah. I stared at him. He stared back. Finn's voice came from the top of the stairs. Mom? I turned. He was standing there in his pajamas, holding his stuffed whale. What's wrong, bud? Are we still going to the beach? Yes. Are you sure? I walked over and knelt in front of him. I'm sure. Go back to bed. He looked past me at Garrett, then back at me. Did I do something wrong? No. Why would you think that? You and Dad are yelling. We're not yelling. We're just talking. He didn't look convinced. I hugged him and walked him back to his room. When I came downstairs, Garrett was gone. I sat on the couch and called my friend Lauren. She answered on the second ring. I told her everything. The tickets, the fight, the look on Finn's face when he asked if he'd done something wrong. She listened. When I finished, she said, "Okay, so here's my question. Is this the hill you want to die on?" I blinked. What? I mean, I get it. You planned this trip. You wanted it to be just your family. But Garrett's ex is in a bind and he's trying to help his kids. If you push back too hard, he's going to resent you. The older kids are going to resent you. Is one vacation really worth all that? I felt something cold settle in my chest. So I should just give in. I'm not saying give in, I'm saying pick your battles. I thanked her and hung up. I sat there in the dark, holding my phone, wondering if everyone else could see something I couldn't. Or if I was the only one who saw it clearly. The next morning, Garrett's sister Alicia called while I was making breakfast. I saw her name on the screen and almost didn't answer. Hey, she said. Garrett told me about the beach thing. I cracked an egg into the pan. Did he? Look, I'm not trying to get in the middle, but I think you should reconsider. Bryce and Addison are going to remember this. They're at that age where they notice everything. We took them on a trip in March. Yeah, but this is different. They found out you're going without them. That's going to sting. I flipped the egg harder than I needed to. Garrett bought their tickets without asking me, because he knew it was the right thing to do. I pressed my lips together. Alicia kept going. I get that you want time with just your kids. I do. But when you marry someone with children, you take on the whole package. That's just how it works. I didn't marry him. You know what I mean. I turned off the stove. Alicia, I really need to finish breakfast. Just think about it, okay? Garrett's trying to keep everyone happy. He needs you to meet him halfway. She hung up before I could answer. I stared at the eggs cooling in the pan. That afternoon, Garrett's mom texted. She didn't even ease into it. Garrett says you're upset about the trip. I know blended families are hard, but those kids need to feel included. You're the adult. You can handle 5 days. I didn't respond. 20 minutes later, she sent another message. I raised 3 kids by myself after their dad left. I know what it's like to stretch yourself thin, but you do it because that's what family means. I put my phone face down on the counter. By dinner time, I had 4 messages waiting. 2 from Garrett's brother asking if we could talk it through, 1 from Alicia again, and 1 from Courtney. I opened Courtney's message first. Thank you so much for making room for Bryce and Addison. I know this wasn't part of your original plan, but it means the world to them. I'll send the Venmo for their meals tonight. Let me know if you need anything else. I read it twice. She'd written it like the decision was already made, like I'd agreed and everyone had moved on. I texted Garrett. Did you tell Courtney this was settled? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. I told her the kids could come, that's all. I didn't agree to that. You didn't say no, because you didn't give me a chance. He didn't respond. I set the phone down and called Ruby and Finn to the table. They ate quietly, glancing at me every few bites like they were waiting for something to break. After I put them to bed, I tried one more time. Garrett was on the couch scrolling through his phone. I sat across from him in the chair. Can we talk about this without fighting? He looked up. Sure. I've been thinking about alternatives. What if we did a shorter trip later in the summer? Just a long weekend, all 6 of us. That way Bryce and Addison get their beach time, but we still get the trip we planned. He shook his head. They already know about this trip. If we tell them they have to wait, they're going to think you don't want them there. Then what about a separate weekend with just them? We could take them somewhere they'd actually enjoy. Let them pick the place. That's not the same. Why not? He set his phone down. Because the trip is happening now. The tickets are booked. The condo is reserved. You're asking me to uninvite my kids so you can have your perfect little vacation with just Finn and Ruby. That's not what I'm asking. That's exactly what you're asking. I leaned forward. Garrett, I'm trying to find a compromise. I'm not saying we never do anything with Bryce and Addison. I'm saying this one trip was supposed to be for us. The 4 of us. I've been planning it for a year and a half. Plans change. Not without both people agreeing. He stood up. You want me to call Courtney and tell her I made a mistake? That I have to cancel the tickets because you don't want to deal with my kids for 5 days? I want you to acknowledge that you made a decision without me. I made a decision to help my children. If that's a problem for you, I don't know what to say. I stared at him. You're acting like I'm the villain here. You're acting like Bryce and Addison are an inconvenience. They're not my kids, Garrett. I didn't plan this trip for them. His face went cold. There it is. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. You've been thinking it this whole time. You just finally said it out loud. He walked out of the room. I heard him go upstairs. A door closed. I sat there alone, my hands shaking. The next day, Garrett's brother Kyle called. I almost didn't pick up, but I knew if I didn't, he'd just keep trying. Hey, he said, Garrett's pretty torn up. Yeah, so am I. Look, I'm not going to tell you how to run your relationship, but I've been in a blended family. My wife has a son from her first marriage. It's not easy. You have to make sacrifices. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're drawing a line between your kids and his. I gripped the phone tighter. That's not fair. Maybe not, but that's how it looks. Bryce and Addison didn't ask for their parents to split up. They didn't ask to feel like outsiders. If you can't handle them for 1 week, maybe you need to rethink whether you're ready for this kind of family. I felt something snap inside me. I've been handling it for 3 years, Kyle. I've done every holiday, every school event, every weekend visit. I've packed their lunches and driven them to practices and sat through their recitals. I've done everything Garrett's asked me to do. I just wanted one trip where I didn't have to manage everyone else's needs. And that's the problem. You're calling it managing. They're not a job. They're his kids. I know they're his kids. Then act like it. He hung up. I stood in the kitchen, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to dead air. That night, Alicia texted again. Have you thought about what I said? I didn't answer. She sent another message an hour later. Garrett's really hurt. He feels like you don't care about his kids. Then another. If you love him, you'll do this. I turned my phone off and went upstairs. Finn was still awake, sitting on his bed with his whale. Mom? I sat next to him. Yeah, bud. Is the trip still happening? Yes. Are Bryce and Addison coming? I looked at his face. He didn't look upset. He looked confused. I don't know yet. Do you want them to come? I didn't know how to answer that. I smoothed his hair. It's complicated. Because they're not really our family. My chest tightened. They're your family. They're your brother and sister. But not yours? I pulled him into a hug so he wouldn't see my face. Go to sleep, okay? He nodded and lay down. I tucked him in and turned off the light. Downstairs, Garrett was in the living room. I walked past without saying anything. He didn't look up. I went into our bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. My phone buzzed. I turned it back on. Another message from Alicia. You're being selfish. One from Kyle. Garrett deserves better than this. One from Garrett's mom. I didn't raise him to put his partner before his children. I read them all. Then I opened my email and pulled up the hotel reservation. My finger hovered over the cancel button. I thought about Finn asking if he'd done something wrong. I thought about Ruby singing about finding crabs. I thought about the spreadsheet I'd built with tide times and mini golf courses, and the restaurant with the outdoor seating where we could watch the sunset. I thought about Garrett buying tickets without asking me. I closed the email and put the phone down, but I didn't delete the thought. I called my mom the next morning while Garrett was at work and the kids were at school. I needed to hear someone tell me I wasn't losing my mind. She picked up on the first ring. I told her everything. The tickets, the messages from Garrett's family, the way he'd stopped looking at me when we were in the same room. She went quiet for a long moment. Then she said, cancel the reservation. I blinked. What? Cancel it. Right now. If he's going to make decisions without you, he can plan the whole trip himself. Mom, I can't just cancel. Finn and Ruby are so excited. Then Garrett should have thought about that before he ambushed you. What he did wasn't okay. He bought tickets for 2 extra kids without asking you, and now his whole family is ganging up on you to make you feel like the bad guy. That's manipulation. I pressed my palm against my forehead. I don't think he's trying to manipulate me. I think he's just trying to help Courtney. By steamrolling you? By telling everyone you're selfish for wanting one trip with your own children? No. He made a choice. You get to make one too. I heard the front door open. Garrett's voice called out that he'd forgotten his laptop. I have to go, I said. Think about what I said. I hung up as Garrett came into the kitchen. He grabbed his laptop off the counter and left without saying a word. That afternoon, my brother Ian called. My mom had told him. You need to put your foot down, he said. Garrett's testing you to see how much he can get away with. If you let this slide, it's only going to get worse. It's not that simple. It is that simple. He made a unilateral decision about your vacation and your money and your time. You have every right to say no. His family thinks I'm being selfish. His family isn't paying for the trip, you are. I didn't have an answer for that. My sister Becca texted an hour later. Mom told me what's going on. I'm on your side. Don't let him guilt you into this. I set my phone down and stared at the ceiling. By the time I picked up Finn and Ruby from school, my head was pounding. Ruby climbed into her car seat and immediately asked, is the beach trip still happening? Yes, baby. Are we leaving soon? 4 more days. Finn buckled himself in and looked at me in the rearview mirror. Are Bryce and Addison coming? I met his eyes. I don't know yet. He frowned. Dad said they are. We're still figuring it out. Ruby kicked her feet against the seat. I don't want them to come. My hands tightened on the wheel. Why not? Because then it won't be just us. Finn looked at her. They're our brother and sister, but they're not moms. I glanced back at her. Ruby, that's not how it works. Yes, it is. You said they're Dad's kids. They're part of our family, but they don't live with us. Finn crossed his arms. So, that doesn't mean they're not family. Ruby's face scrunched up. I just want it to be us. Like you said. I pulled into the driveway and turned off the car. We'll talk about it later. She started crying. Finn unbuckled and climbed out without looking at me. Inside, I made them snacks and turned on a show. Ruby sat on the couch clutching her blanket. Finn disappeared into his room. I texted Garrett. Ruby's upset. Finn overheard us fighting. We need to get on the same page before this gets worse. He didn't respond. That night, after I put the kids to bed, Finn came back downstairs. His eyes were red. Mom? I sat up. What's wrong? Are Bryce and Addison more important than us? The question hit me like a punch. No, why would you think that? Because Dad's making them come even though you don't want them to. I pulled him onto the couch next to me. It's not that I don't want them to come. It's complicated. But you planned the trip for us. Just us. I did. And now Dad's changing it. I didn't know what to say. He looked at me waiting. Your dad loves all of you, I said finally. He's trying to make sure everyone feels included. But what about what you want? I smoothed his hair. Sometimes grown-ups have to compromise. That's not fair. I know. He leaned against me. I held him until he fell asleep on my shoulder. I carried him back to bed and stood in the doorway watching him breathe. The next morning, Garrett's family was hosting a barbecue for his mom's birthday. I didn't want to go, but Garrett said skipping it would make things worse. We drove in silence. The kids sat in the back, Ruby humming, Finn staring out the window. When we arrived, Alicia opened the door. She smiled at Garrett and the kids, then looked at me. Hey. We walked into the backyard. Garrett's mom hugged Finn and Ruby, then turned to me. Glad you could make it. I forced a smile. Of course. Kyle was at the grill. He waved at Garrett and ignored me. Alicia's husband offered me a drink. I took a soda and stood near the fence, watching the kids play. Garrett joined his brother at the grill. I heard Kyle say something I couldn't make out. Garrett laughed. It was the first time I'd heard him laugh in days. Alicia walked over to me. Can we talk? Sure. She gestured toward the side of the house. I followed her. Once we were out of earshot, she crossed her arms. Bryce and Addison are devastated, she said. They think you hate them. I don't hate them. Then why are you doing this? I'm not doing anything. Garrett bought tickets without asking me. I'm trying to figure out how to handle it. By canceling the trip? I didn't cancel anything. But you're thinking about it. I looked at her. How do you know that? Garrett told us. He said you've been looking at the reservation. I felt my face flush. That's between me and him, not when it affects the whole family. Those kids have been through enough. Their parents are divorced. They already feel like outsiders. And now you're making them feel even worse. I didn't make them feel anything. Garrett's the one who told them about a trip they weren't invited to. Her eyes narrowed. You're really going to blame him for trying to include his own children? I'm blaming him for making a decision without me. Because you only care about Finn and Ruby. That's not true. Then prove it. Stop making this harder than it needs to be. I stepped back. I'm not having this conversation. Why? Because you know I'm right? Because you're not listening. I walked back toward the yard. Alicia followed. We're not done. I kept walking. Garrett looked up from the grill. Alicia raised her voice. You can't just walk away every time someone calls you out. I stopped. Everyone was staring. Garrett's mom, Kyle, the kids, Garrett. I turned back to Alicia. I'm not walking away. I'm choosing not to argue with you in front of everyone. Because you know you're wrong. Because this isn't your business. Garrett set down the tongs. Okay, that's enough. Alicia looked at him. She's the one being unreasonable. I said that's enough. I grabbed my purse off the patio table. I'm leaving. Garrett stepped toward me. Don't. I'm not doing this here. You're proving her point. I stared at him. Excuse me? You're walking out instead of talking it through, just like you've been doing all week. I've been trying to talk. You're the one who won't listen. Kyle spoke up from the grill. Maybe if you listened to what everyone's been telling you, we wouldn't be here. I looked around the yard. Every single person was watching me like I was the problem. Like I was the one who'd caused all of this. Finn stood near the back door holding his plate. Ruby was on the swing, her face confused. I looked at Garrett. I'm taking the kids home. No, I'm not leaving them here while everyone talks about me. Then stay. So your family can keep telling me I'm selfish? No thanks. I walked over to Finn. Come on, bud. We're going. He set down his plate. Ruby climbed off the swing. Garrett followed us to the car. You're making this worse, he said. I buckled Ruby into her seat. I'm protecting them from watching your family attack me. No one attacked you. Alicia just cornered me and told me I hate your kids. In front of everyone. He ran his hand through his hair. She's upset. We all are. Because I wanted one trip with my own children. Because you're acting like Bryce and Addison don't matter. I slammed the car door. Finn flinched. I walked around to the driver's side. Garrett grabbed my arm. Don't leave like this. I pulled away. Let go of me. We need to finish this conversation. There's nothing left to say. I got in the car and started the engine. Garrett stood in the driveway, hands on his hips, watching us pull away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Alicia come out of the backyard. She stood next to him, shaking her head. Ruby started crying. Finn stared straight ahead. I drove home with my jaw clenched and my hands shaking on the wheel. When we got inside, I sent both kids upstairs and sat on the couch. My phone buzzed. Garrett's mom. That was incredibly disrespectful. Alicia, you just made everything worse. Kyle, Garrett deserves better. I turned off my phone and sat in the silence. An hour later, Garrett came home. He didn't say anything. He went straight upstairs. I stayed on the couch, staring at the wall, wondering how we'd gotten here. I sat on the couch for an hour after Garrett went upstairs. The house felt too quiet. I kept replaying the barbecue in my head. Alicia's voice rising, Kyle's expression, the way Garrett had told me I was proving their point by leaving. I picked up my phone and opened my email. The hotel reservation sat in my inbox, untouched since I'd booked it 4 months ago. I clicked through to the details page. Cancellation policy. Full refund if canceled more than 48 hours before check-in. We had 3 days. I stared at the screen. The reservation was under my name, my credit card, my confirmation number. Garrett had bought plane tickets for Bryce and Addison, but he hadn't touched the hotel. He couldn't. He didn't have access to the account. I closed the email and set my phone down. The next morning, Garrett left for work without saying goodbye. Finn and Ruby ate breakfast in silence. Ruby asked if we were still going to the beach. I told her yes, but my voice didn't sound convincing even to me. After I dropped them at school, I sat in the parking lot and called the hotel directly. A woman answered on the third ring. "Hi," I said. "I have a reservation starting in 3 days. I wanted to confirm the cancellation policy." She asked for my confirmation number. I read it off. She clicked through her system. "Okay, you're all set. You can cancel any time up to 48 hours before check-in for a full refund. After that, you'd lose the deposit. And no one else can cancel it? Just me?" "That's correct. The reservation is under your name and payment method. Only you have authorization to make changes." I thanked her and hung up. I sat there for a long time, engine off, staring at the elementary school drop-off lane. A crossing guard waved at me. I waved back automatically. When I got home, I texted Garrett. "We need to talk tonight after the kids go to bed." He didn't respond until lunch. Fine. That night, I waited until Ruby and Finn were asleep. Garrett came downstairs and sat in the chair across from me, arms crossed. "What?" he said. I kept my voice level. "I'm not going on this trip if Bryce and Addison come." His jaw tightened. "We've been over this." "I know, and you haven't listened. So I'm telling you now, clearly. Either we go back to the original plan, just the 4 of us, or I cancel the reservation." He laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. "You're not going to cancel." "Yes, I am." "You'd disappoint Finn and Ruby just to get your way?" "You disappointed all of us when you bought those tickets without asking me." He leaned forward. "This is different. You're threatening to blow up the whole trip." "You already blew it up. I'm just deciding whether I want to spend a week pretending everything's fine while I babysit 4 kids and manage your ex's logistics." "Courtney's not even coming." "Exactly. She's not coming. You are. And I am. And instead of the trip we planned, we'll be referees and chaperones, and I'll spend the entire time wondering why I didn't just say no." Garrett stood up. "So say no. Cancel it. Prove to everyone that you only care about yourself. I care about not being bulldozed. I care about having a say in my own vacation. It's not just your vacation, it's our vacation, our family's vacation." "Then why didn't you treat it like our decision?" He didn't answer. He grabbed his keys off the counter. "Where are you going?" "Out." "I can't do this right now." He left. The door slammed. I sat on the couch and pulled up the hotel reservation on my phone. My finger hovered over the cancel button. I thought about Finn's face when he asked if he'd done something wrong. I thought about Ruby crying in the car, asking why everything felt different. I thought about the spreadsheet I'd built and the condo with the balcony and the mornings I'd imagined where no one needed anything from me except to pass the sunscreen. I thought about Garrett buying tickets without asking. I pressed cancel. The screen asked me to confirm. I confirmed. A new email arrived in my inbox. "Your reservation has been canceled. A full refund will be processed within 5 to 7 business days." I forwarded it to Garrett. Then I turned off my phone and went upstairs. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, waiting for Garrett to come home. He didn't. At 6 in the morning, I heard the front door open. Footsteps on the stairs. The bedroom door stayed closed. I got up and went downstairs. Garrett was on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes. His phone was on the coffee table, screen facing up. I saw my email on the display. He looked at me. "You actually did it." "Yes." "You canceled the trip." "I canceled the hotel. The trip you planned without me." He stood up, his face red. "You just punished Finn and Ruby to win an argument. You punished all of us when you made a unilateral decision and expected me to fall in line. This is unbelievable. Do you have any idea what you just did?" I set a boundary, something I should have done the second you bought those tickets. "A boundary? You destroyed our vacation. You ruined it for everyone. You ruined it first." He grabbed his phone off the table. "I'm calling Courtney. I need to tell her the kids can't come after all." "Good." "Good? You think this is good?" "I think it's honest. You never should have told her they could come in the first place." He scrolled through his contacts, then stopped. He looked at me. "What am I supposed to say? That my partner threw a tantrum and canceled everything? Tell her the truth. Tell her you made a decision without me and I didn't agree to it. She's going to think you're selfish." "She already thinks that. Your whole family does. It doesn't matter what I say at this point." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he walked past me toward the stairs. "Where are you going?" "To pack a bag. I'm staying at Kyle's." I felt my stomach drop. "Garrett, don't." "Why not? You just made it clear you don't want to be here." "That's not what I did." "Yes, it is. You chose this. You chose to cancel the trip instead of compromising. You chose yourself over everyone else. I chose not to be steamrolled." He stopped on the stairs and turned around. "You know what? Fine. Cancel the trip, ruin everything. But don't act surprised when the kids ask why they didn't get to go to the beach. Don't act surprised when they realize it's because of you. It's because of you. No, it's because you couldn't handle 5 days with my kids. That's what this has always been about." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. He went upstairs. I heard drawers opening. A zipper. Footsteps. He came back down with a duffel bag. He walked past me without looking. The front door opened. Closed. I stood in the living room alone, listening to his car pull out of the driveway. My phone buzzed. I turned it back on. Alicia. "Garrett told me what you did. You're unbelievable." "Kyle. He's coming to stay with us. I hope you're happy." "Garrett's mom. You've destroyed this family." I set the phone on the counter and walked upstairs. Ruby's door was open. She was sitting up in bed. "Mom?" I went in and sat next to her. "What's wrong, baby?" "I heard yelling." "I'm sorry. Go back to sleep." "Is Daddy mad?" "We're just figuring some things out." "Are we still going to the beach?" I looked at her small, hopeful face. I thought about the email in my inbox, the canceled reservation, the refund processing. "I don't know yet." Her lips started to tremble. I pulled her into a hug before she could cry. Ruby fell asleep in my arms. I carried her back to her bed and tucked her in, then stood in the doorway watching her breathe. Down the hall, Finn's door was closed. I pressed my ear against it. Silence. I went back downstairs and sat on the couch. My phone kept buzzing. I didn't look at it. The next day, I took Finn and Ruby to school. Ruby asked where Daddy was. I told her he was staying with Uncle Kyle for a few days. She asked why. I said we were figuring some things out. Finn didn't ask anything. He climbed out of the car and walked toward the building without looking back. When I got home, the house felt too big. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table staring at the calendar on the wall. 2 days until we were supposed to leave. The beach trip dates were circled in red marker. Ruby had drawn a sun and a crab next to them. My phone rang. Garrett's name on the screen. I answered. "We need to talk," he said. "Okay." "Not on the phone. Can you come to Kyle's?" "I have to pick up the kids in 3 hours." "Then come now." I drove to Kyle's house. Garrett was sitting on the front steps. He stood when I pulled up. I got out of the car and followed him around to the backyard where no one would hear us. He crossed his arms. "I've been thinking about what you said." "Okay. And I still think you're wrong, but I'm willing to compromise." I waited. We rebooked the hotel. All 6 of us go. "But I'll handle Bryce and Addison. You focus on Finn and Ruby. That way you're not managing everyone." I shook my head. "That's not a compromise. That's the same thing with different words. What do you want me to do? Tell my kids they can't come after I already said yes?" "Yes, that's exactly what I want you to do." His face went hard. "I'm not doing that." "Then we're not going. You already made sure of that. You made sure of it when you bought those tickets." He stepped closer. "I bought tickets to help my kids. You canceled a reservation to punish me." "I didn't cancel it to punish you. I canceled it because I'm not spending my vacation being the babysitter for a trip I never agreed to." They're not babies, they're teenagers. Who don't listen to me, who treat me like I'm invisible, who make every family event harder than it needs to be, because you make them feel unwelcome. I make them feel unwelcome? Garrett, I've done everything you've asked. I've rearranged my schedule for their games. I've packed their lunches. I've driven them to their mom's house at midnight because she changed her mind about pickup. I've sat through every recital and award ceremony and parent-teacher conference. I've bought birthday presents and Christmas gifts and made sure they had a stocking at our house even though they're only here twice a month. I've done everything except erase my own kids to make room for yours. That's not fair. It's completely fair. You want me to treat Bryce and Addison like they're mine, but the second I want something for Finn and Ruby, I'm selfish. This isn't about Finn and Ruby. This is about you not wanting to deal with my ex. Your ex isn't even coming on the trip. This is about you making decisions without me and expecting me to smile and go along with it. He ran his hand through his hair. I don't know what you want from me. I want you to acknowledge that you were wrong. I want you to admit that you shouldn't have bought those tickets without asking me first. He looked at me for a long moment. I can't do that. Why not? Because I wasn't wrong. Courtney needed help. Bryce and Addison needed to feel included. I did what I had to do. Without me. Because I knew you'd say no. So you just did it anyway. Yes. I stared at him. Then I don't know what we're doing here. Neither do I. We stood there in Kyle's backyard, 3 feet apart, not saying anything. A dog barked somewhere down the street. A car drove past. Garrett broke the silence first. I can't be with someone who only wants the easy parts of this family. I don't want the easy parts. I want a partner who respects me enough to make decisions with me, not for me. And I can't be with someone who treats my kids like they're optional. They're not optional, but neither am I. He looked at the ground. Maybe we need to take a break. The words landed like a punch. I opened my mouth, closed it. How long? I don't know. A few weeks. A month. However long it takes to figure out if this is going to work. I felt something crack inside my chest. You're breaking up with me because I wouldn't let you hijack our vacation. I'm taking space because I don't know how to be with someone who can't love all my kids the same way. I do love them. I just don't love being bulldozed. That's not what this is. Yes, it is. You're punishing me for having a boundary. He shook his head. I'm protecting my kids from someone who sees them as a burden. I stepped back. I need to go. Fine. I walked to my car. He didn't follow. I drove home with my hands shaking on the wheel. When I picked up Finn and Ruby from school, Ruby climbed into her seat and asked if Daddy was coming home. I said not today. She started crying. Finn stared out the window and didn't say anything. That night, after I put them to bed, Finn came back downstairs. His eyes were red. Mom? I sat up. What's wrong? Is the trip canceled because of me and Ruby? No. Why would you think that? Because Alicia said you only wanted to go with us. And now we're not going at all. I pulled him onto the couch. The trip got canceled because your dad and I couldn't agree on how to handle it. That's not your fault. It's not Ruby's fault. It's between me and him. But we were the reason you didn't want Bryce and Addison to come. No, I wanted the trip we planned. That's different. Bryce texted me. He said you hate them. My stomach dropped. I don't hate them. Then why can't they come? I didn't know how to explain it in a way that wouldn't make him choose sides. It's complicated. Everything's complicated now. He leaned against me. I held him until he fell asleep, then carried him back to bed. The next morning was the day we were supposed to leave. I woke up early and went downstairs. The suitcase was still in the hallway, half packed. Ruby's goggles sat on top. Finn's stuffed whale. I sat on the stairs and stared at it. My phone buzzed. Garrett, can you talk? I called him. He answered on the first ring. I've been thinking, he said. Maybe we should try counseling. Just you and me or all of us? You and me first, then we figure out the rest. Okay. I found someone who specializes in blended families. She has an opening next week. I'll go. Okay. Neither of us said anything for a moment. Are you still at Kyle's? I asked. Yeah, I think I need to stay here a little longer. How long? I don't know, until we figure this out. And if we don't? He didn't answer right away. Then I guess we'll know. I heard Ruby's footsteps upstairs. I have to go. Okay. I hung up. Ruby came down the stairs in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Is today beach day? I crouched down in front of her. No, baby. The trip got canceled. Her face crumpled. Why? Because Daddy and I couldn't agree on the plan, but I wanted to build sandcastles. I know, I'm sorry. She started crying. I picked her up and held her while she sobbed into my shoulder. Finn appeared in the doorway of his room, watching. His face was blank. I spent the day fielding messages. Alicia sent 3 texts asking if I was happy now. Kyle sent one saying Garrett was a mess and it was my fault. Garrett's mom called and left a voicemail I didn't listen to. My mom called in the afternoon. I answered. How are you holding up? I don't know. Did you cancel the tickets? Garrett did. He called Courtney yesterday. How did she take it? I don't know. He didn't tell me. She went quiet for a moment. Do you regret it? I looked at the suitcase in the hallway, at Ruby's goggles, at the calendar on the wall with the circled dates and the hand-drawn sun. I don't know, I said again. You did what you had to do. Did I? Because it doesn't feel like I won anything. You didn't win. You set a boundary. That's different. It doesn't feel different. It feels like I blew up my family over one trip. He blew it up when he bought those tickets without asking you. Everyone keeps saying that. It doesn't make it easier. She sighed. I know. We talked for a few more minutes, then I hung up. Ruby was on the couch watching cartoons. Finn was in his room. The house was quiet except for the TV. That night, Garrett came by to pick up some clothes. He knocked instead of using his key. I opened the door. He looked exhausted. Can I come in? I stepped aside. He walked past me into the living room. Ruby ran over and hugged his legs. He picked her up. Hey, baby. Are you coming home? Not yet. When? Soon. Finn came downstairs and stood at the bottom of the steps. Garrett set Ruby down and walked over. He hugged Finn. Finn didn't hug back. You okay, bud? Finn shrugged. I know this is hard. I'm sorry. Finn looked at me, then back at Garrett. Are you and Mom breaking up? Garrett glanced at me. I didn't say anything. We're figuring things out, Garrett said. That's what Mom said. It's true. Finn pulled away. I'm going back upstairs. He left. Ruby climbed onto the couch. Garrett looked at me. That went well. I crossed my arms. What did you expect? I don't know, not this. This is what happens when you blow up a family vacation 2 days before it's supposed to start. His jaw tightened. I didn't blow it up, you did. We're not doing this in front of Ruby. He looked at her on the couch, then back at me. I'm going to grab my stuff. He went upstairs. I heard drawers opening, a closet door. He came back down with a bag. I'll call you after the counseling appointment. Okay. He kissed Ruby on the head, then left. The door closed. Ruby looked at me. Is Daddy mad at you? We're both upset. Because of the beach? Because of a lot of things. She climbed off the couch and came over. She put her arms around my waist. I love you, Mommy. I held her. I love you too, baby. The counseling session was the following Tuesday. Garrett and I sat on opposite ends of a couch in a small office with pale blue walls. The therapist, a woman named Dr. Brennan, sat across from us with a notepad. She asked us to explain what brought us in. Garrett went first. He talked about the trip, the tickets, the way I'd canceled the reservation without warning. He said he felt like I didn't respect his kids, that I only wanted the parts of the family that were convenient. Then it was my turn. I told her about the planning, the spreadsheet, the 18 months of saving. I told her about the phone call with Courtney, the tickets Garrett bought while I was asleep, the way his whole family had turned on me when I said no. Dr. Brennan listened. When we finished, she set down her notepad. Let me ask you something, Garrett. When you bought those tickets, did you consider that your partner might say no? He shifted. I thought she'd understand once she had time to think about it. So you made a unilateral decision and expected her to adjust. I made a decision to help my kids. Without consulting your partner? I knew she'd say no. Dr. Brennan nodded. And what does that tell you? He didn't answer. She turned to me. When you canceled the reservation, did you consider the impact on your children? Yes. That's part of why I did it. I didn't want them to watch me spend a week being resentful, but they didn't get the trip at all. I know. So, in protecting your boundary, you also took something away from them. I looked at my hands. I know that too. She leaned back. Here's what I'm seeing. Garrett, you violated trust by making a major decision without your partner's input. That's a serious breach, and it sent the message that her voice doesn't matter in your family. But, she looked at me. When you canceled the reservation, you also made a unilateral decision. You took an action that affected everyone without giving Garrett a chance to course correct. He wasn't going to course correct, I said. He'd already told Courtney the kids could come. Did you ask him to uninvite them? Yes, he said no. And then you canceled. Yes. She nodded slowly. So you both made choices that prioritized your own position over collaboration. And now you're here because neither of you feels heard. Garrett looked at me. I looked at the floor. Dr. Brennan continued. Blended families are hard. They require constant negotiation. Garrett, your kids from your first marriage are part of your life, and your partner has to make space for that. But your partner also has needs and boundaries that are legitimate. She's allowed to want time with just her children. That doesn't make her selfish. It makes her human. Garrett's shoulders sagged. So what do we do? You start by acknowledging what you each did wrong. Then you rebuild trust. Slowly. We sat in silence. Dr. Brennan looked at both of us. Do you want to rebuild? Garrett looked at me. I looked at him. I don't know, I said. He nodded. Me neither. We left the session and stood in the parking lot. Garrett unlocked his car, then stopped. I'm sorry, he said, for buying the tickets without asking. I'm sorry for canceling the reservation without warning you first. He leaned against his car. I don't know how to fix this. Neither do I. Maybe we can't. I felt tears start. I blinked them back. Maybe. He got in his car. I got in mine. We drove away in opposite directions. That night, Ruby asked when we could go to the beach. I told her maybe next summer. She asked if Daddy would come. I said I didn't know. Finn asked if it was over. I asked what he meant. He said, "You and Dad." I told him we were figuring it out. He looked at me with eyes too old for 7. That means yes. I didn't correct him. I sat on the couch that night, staring at the suitcase still in the hallway. Ruby's goggles, Finn's whale. The refund had come through. Hotel, plane tickets, all of it. The money was back in my account like the trip had never existed. But Finn's question sat in the air. Ruby's confusion. The look on Garrett's face in the parking lot when he said, maybe we couldn't fix this. I'd wanted one trip, just one. I'd drawn a line and held it. And now I was sitting in an empty house with 2 confused kids and a partner who might not come back, wondering if the boundary I'd protected was worth everything it had cost.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop your favorite part in the comments. See you in the next one.